Welcome back. You're tuned into Critter Conversations with Animal Lover Jan, and on the line we have got Mark Edelson and Orion Myers, who has been sitting back listening to the program and will chime in and tell his experience with the orgone that I think he took a bath with. I know I took a bath with it today, and it just makes a difference. It's something very, very special. And something else that is very, very special, I want to let everyone know that I am on LBN station. It's Liberty Broadcasting Network, and I air at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is live. It's streaming. And I had Dr. Jason Rand last week on the program on my Liberty Broadcasting Network, and we hit and topped the charts. Now, how special is that? And tonight I'm going to be having Mark Edelson, my guest that right here in person, right across the pond, is going to be my guest tonight. We're going to be talking about orgone and more detailed topics about how orgone affects our environment, our planet, our two- and four-legged, furred and feathered angels, and the people. So if you are interested, you can go to www.libertybroadcastingnetwork.com, and it'll bring up a screen, and you can look at the show host, and you'll see the lineup. And then there's a tab there you can go to and click it's Listen Live. And then as that screen comes up, there will be a button at the bottom that you can click on, and it will say Listen. And you can listen through your computer, and there is a call-in number, and you can call in and ask a question or make a comment. And again, that's at 8 o'clock p.m., and Mark Edelson and myself are going to be live streaming on Liberty Broadcast Network. Now then, we are talking about placebo effect. Mark, before we went to take a short pause, the placebo effect with our animals, there is none. And explain that and why.
Thanks, Jan. That's a very good point, because people will say, oh, well, it's a placebo effect. Well, how I answer that is there's some people that get these devices that I've produced, and they put them places where people are sick or not very well, but not tell them that the device is actually there. And then what they find is, obviously, they're unaware of anything that's around them. It's either put under the mattress or under the bed or places where they don't know it's there. And then they find that these people, their health starts to increase. They sleep better. They've got more energy. And then you think to yourself, well, they don't know it's there. So it can't be a placebo effect because they don't know it's there, but it's still working. So that answers that question. And also, with animals, there's no such thing as a placebo, because they just think, oh, it's a rock or it's something there. And we have similar effects with animals. For instance, I have two cats, and one of my cats before the orgone was very, very aggressive. It was kind of an aggressive cat. And I just want to say to the viewers out there, if you have aggressive animals, sometimes they can pick up on entities that you can't see, but they're definitely there, because they'll look at something that's not there and you think, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? But they pick up. You see, they also pick up on the energy. What we found with the orgone device, or the orgonite as it's called, orgonite device, is that it will calm or get, because an entity is actually a negative entity or negative force, the orgone energy, it will not stay around the energy, so it goes away. So the cat or the animal, it tends to calm them down as well. But not only that, but animals can get stressed, and sometimes when they get stressed, they get smelly. I mean, we know people where they say they have animals and they're very smelly, and it's because they get very, very stressed. When they get the orgone device, it kind of is like a calming, very calming energy. It you can feel the energy actually around you and in the room, and it seems to calm the animals down. So if you've got animals who they're a little bit edgy or they pick up on things, It could be because, you know, they're stressed, or it could be because as well they may have certain entities, because I think we've established now that some things are there but we can't see them, and they're not always a positive thing. So what the energy does, the orgone energy, it kind of makes everything in a positive way. It calms the mind, the body, and the soul, as it were. And this is what I found, and this is what I found through my, you know, people who are on the product. And there's, like I said before, if you go onto the website, I've built a website which is absolutely growing by the day, because I'm finding more testimonials through my users, more testimonials out on the internet, and it's orgone, O-R-G-O-N-E, dash or hyphen or minus sign, whatever you call it. We call it hyphen, I'm sure everybody does, or minus sign. So you've got orgone, hyphen, orgonite, O-R-G-O-N-I-T-E, and then another hyphen, supplier.com. So if you go on there, navigate around the site, it will sort of tell you nearly everything you need to know. I'm still learning all the time, but the basic information and some technical information is there. But I'm finding, and I'm going to put up more information on the animals, because we're getting a lot of animal stories coming through. A lot of, you know, animals were sick, and were literally, the vet said, look, we're going to have to put, you know, this animal down. You don't need to. If you try with the if there's a chance with the orgone that can help the animal, which we found it does help them and stop them from being, you know, put down, then definitely give it a try. Jan?
Yes, and you know, even if you don't have any so-called animals that have an illness, or that support any type of medication that the vet has said they need to take constantly, my babies, I mean, I've got enough in my home that it's filled with love, but I have been able to tell a difference in my little baby love, my little black kitty cat that I saved from being 2 ounces, and she took a little bit of a disposition of being backward. With the orgonite in the home, she has been coming out and coming up to the other animals. Just yesterday and last night, she has started to do this. She never did this on her own. I would get her and bring her to bed with me and love on her, but then sometimes she would get afraid, and she would want to hide up in the top of the closet, or run down and go back into her little cubby hole where she stays on top of the dryer in my laundry room. And she's safe and she's okay there, but I want her to be a part of my family, make it an all-around family. And this is happening in my little baby Roast. He is coming out where he's not as afraid. When I walk by, he will stand up on his back legs and reach out and grab my arm or my leg or back, or catch onto my clothes and hold on to. I come back and love him. I mean, this is phenomenal. And, you know, I guess that could work the same way with a human. If they stand on their back legs and reach out and grab someone and want to love them. But this is something really, really wonderful. And Orion, would you like to share what you've experienced?
Yeah. As you were talking, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. So, yeah, as you were going over that, talking about your animal and coming out, it's sort of interesting in that in Reich's early work in the 1933, he wrote a book called Character Analysis, and he talks about the person's character rather than only their symptoms should be considered when diagnosing and analyzing a neurosis. And so he started researching this orgonite energy along the lines of helping the organism let go of its armor, because he had a theory called armoring, and that basically was the organism was trying to protect themselves in various ways, and they would sort of shut down and, you know, let some condition that happened in the past, you know, perpetuate itself. And so he was looking for ways to decrease that armoring effect, you know, to throw away the armor basically, so the animal or the human was able to just, you know, be sort of in the present and you know, as expanded as they could without feeling afraid. So, and that's really when Reich was working with Sigmund Freud, Sigmund Freud initially really liked Reich's work, and he made Reich his number one sort of protege, and after they worked together for a while, though, Reich went on the path of seeing that the actual energy of the organism had a vital importance as far as their mental health went. And Sigmund Freud was sort of on the page of just stressing the psychoanalysis and sort of mental, just mental fixes for things. And so they eventually separated when Reich really, stepped up and said, well, no, there's a organic energy that's very closely related or just intrinsically tied to the health and the mental health of the organism. And that's where Reich really got onto his orgonite or his orgone research and started developing ways to collect it and concentrate it so that he could expose organisms to this greater energy. And it's so in theory, if you would totally de-armor an organism and put him back to his original state of full health, there wouldn't be any issues mentally or physically, which is sort of an interesting idea. It's like, well, gee, maybe the way creation was meant to work was, to just accelerate the expansion of a person or an animal, and so they could, grow and evolve. And if you didn't have negative influences, then you wouldn't have something stopping that. So the orgonite seems to be a balancing factor, because we live in an environment that's very saturated with negative electrons, and it actually goes down to the physics level, because the electron flow, our whole electronics industry right now is predominantly focused on the manipulation of and the generation of electrons, which have a negative charge. And so the orgonite appears to be a positive sort of energy that's, it's a positive and a balancing force. So it seems to be, capable of repairing this boundary layer between the negative electrons, which, the negative electrons are part of creation as well, but if they're overused, then there gets to be an unbalance in that arena. And so orgonite seems to be a balancing mechanism.
Yes, and Orion, I would, as you're speaking there, I'm thinking about the difference between our little 2- and 4-legged furred and feathered angels, or large furred and feathered angels, and
Mm-hmm.
humans. Going back to the placebo, when this is around our animals, there is not that conflicting internal junk that goes on inside of people. It does not go on inside of our animals. And so the response and the results of this is much, much more readily seen and observed in our 2- and 4-legged furred and feathered angels. And I think that is fascinating, because I have experienced that with my babies.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, that makes sense, because we're human beings are much more structured into our mental, knowledge and awareness, and sometimes I'd say we often can get trapped into our old line of consideration. So an animal doesn't know that that's not going to help him, or doesn't have any preconceived ideas, and the orgone energy itself seems to be a central life energy. I mean, when Reich was doing his work on it, he actually based naming it off the orgasm, which seems pretty.
I was thinking that's probably exactly where it originated from.
Yeah, because he had spotted the orgasm. He studied the physiology of orgasms, and he found that it was an energy generating and release mechanism. And so he looked at it in terms of energy flows, energy creation, energy dissipation, and the